They said she wasn't marine material, but her confirmed kills told a different story. Before we begin, where are you tuning in from? Drop your country or city in the comments and subscribe for more untold stories that deserved more than silence. Parris Island, South Carolina, where heat bled from the concrete and sweat carried rank. It was week 2 of the sniper prep course when Kara Reddick arrived. One duffel, no expression, and combat boots too clean for a range like this. She looked out of place, not because she was the only woman in the group, but because she didn't posture, didn't flex, didn't play the game. The others noticed. A tall corporal muttered as she passed, "What is this? Admin week." Another chuckled. "Maybe she's here for first aid. Moral support." She said nothing, just moved to her bunk, unpacked with clinical precision, and locked her rifle case with an old 4-digit code. Not biometric, not new, just efficient. By the time the second week ended, the whispers turned to sneers. She froze during the first stress drill, dropped her weapon in the mud during the low-crawl sim, failed the first 3 shots, missed her target once by 2 inches. "They're going to cut her by Friday," someone grinned. What they didn't know was that Kara Reddick wasn't here to impress them. She was here because someone else asked her to be, and that someone wore stars. Colonel Rayner reviewed her file late that night in his office. The video feed was grainy. Footage from Kandahar, 2011. A grain silo, a heat signature. One shot. The insurgent didn't even fall. He simply ceased to exist on screen. The coordinates matched a known operation, but there was no record of who took the shot. Until now, the file said, Reddick Kara A. MOS, redacted. Previous unit, redacted. Deployment, unknown. Confirmed kills, 7, unofficial, 12, unverified. Rayner blinked. What the hell are you doing in basic again? The change came on week 3. A real-world test. 1 kilometer winded shot. Cross slope, heat shimmer, rotating targets. Kara stepped up with the same old bolt action the others mocked. The wind was erratic. One of the instructors leaned to the other. "She'll crack under this." Crack. First target, down. Crack. Second, ping, dead center. Crack. Third, shattered the plate support. Silence. One instructor pulled off his glasses. She adjusted for wind by sound. The corporal who mocked her now stared. "She's not marine material," he whispered. "No," the sergeant next to him said. "She's something else." Inside the command trailer, Rayner watched it unfold live. "She's not a recruit," he said flatly. "She's a contingency." The aide looked confused. "Sir," she was benched, buried, but someone pulled her back. "Why?" Rayner stood up, slowly. "Because whatever's coming, they need someone who doesn't ask how far." Just when Parris Island didn't wake up, it roared to life. At 0500 sharp, the drill instructor's voice split the morning fog. "Range warm-up in 10. No excuses. No mercy." Kara Reddick tied her boots in silence. Her movements were automatic, tight, measured, like she'd done it in a war zone, not a barracks. From her duffel, she pulled a small, weathered notebook, edges frayed, pages curled, some with what looked like powder burns along the seams. Something was off about the morning. Before they even lined up, Drill Sergeant Bailey approached. "Reddick, CO wants you." Now. No explanation. No expression. Just the order. Kara nodded once, stood, and followed without a word. Colonel Rayner stood behind his desk, flipping through a file that was supposed to be hers. But it wasn't. There were no physical scores, no psych evals, no training metrics. Just a designation. Tier 9 clearance. Black program, Marionette. He closed the folder slowly. "Care to explain why someone with your clearance is re-entering sniper school, like a recruit?" Kara didn't blink. "Maybe the question isn't about me. Maybe it's about who signed the transfer." Rayner narrowed his eyes. "Your name wasn't on any active rosters. You just appeared. That's what ghosts do." There was a beat of silence. A hum from the ceiling vent. Somewhere far off, a drill instructor barked an order. Rayner tapped the folder. Marionette. That program was shut down after the Red Winter incident. It was buried, Kara corrected. Not shut down. And now it's active again? Kara stepped closer. You don't bring in someone like me unless something's broken. And whatever's broken, It's big. Rayner studied her. You're not here to train, are you? I'm here to disappear in plain sight. He looked down at her faded name tag. Reddick, that even your real name? She didn't answer. Back at the range, Kara returned just as the warm-up concluded. Some recruits whispered. Others stared. One cocky corporal leaned in. So what? Are you a spy or something? She ignored him and took her place at the firing lane. The range officer called the challenge. 3 targets. Wind shift. 1,100 meters. 10 seconds. Kara picked up the rifle like it was an extension of her spine. No scope check. No hesitation. She fired 3 times. 3 pings. 3 direct hits. All within 8 seconds. No one cheered. They just stared, because one of the spotters recognized the shot grouping. It wasn't just accurate. It was signature accurate. Colonel Rayner watched from the control tower. He turned to his adjutant. Pull the archived red winter footage. The rifle trace. We might have a match. Sir, the adjutant said carefully. That would mean she... Rayner nodded, pale. She didn't just survive it. She was the reason it ended. Colonel Rayner hadn't moved in 5 minutes. The control room was quiet, save for the hum of the old archive terminal. On screen, grainy footage from 13 years prior played on loop, time-stamped op Red Winter / classified / tier 9. There she was. Smaller, younger, but unmistakable. Same gait, same precision, same silence between shots. And the shot patterns identical. Clustered like a surgeon's scalpel had carved them onto the screen. Rayner exhaled slowly. It's her. His aide hesitated. Sir, are you going to notify JSOC? No, not yet. Rayner closed the terminal and stood. She was pulled for a reason. If she's back on grid, someone somewhere is playing a deeper game. And we're just watching the surface ripple. Back on the range, Kara was cleaning her rifle alone. The SEAL candidates had kept their distance since the morning test. Not out of respect, out of unease. You don't mock a shadow you suddenly realize is real. Private Jensen, one of the younger recruits, finally approached. Hey, you were in Red Winter, right? Kara didn't look up. What makes you say that? Your shot grouping. That last hit, only 3 people in the archives ever pulled that formation. She said nothing. Jensen swallowed. My brother. He didn't make it out of that op. Kara paused, closed the bolt, looked up. I'm sorry. Don't be. Jensen replied, voice shaking. I think he would have liked you. He walked away before she could respond. That night, Kara sat alone in the mess hall, her tray untouched. The overhead lights buzzed faintly, flickering like a warning. Then a quiet voice broke the silence. Why did you come back? She turned. Colonel Rayner stood across from her, coffee in hand, no rank displayed. Paris Island doesn't just let ghosts walk in without a signal, he continued. So what was it? Kara leaned back, eyes scanning him like terrain. I intercepted a coded broadcast 6 days ago, she said. Encrypted in the same cadence as Red Winter's abort sequence. Rayner paled. That's not possible. Neither was surviving Red Winter, she replied. But here we are. He set the coffee down. What do you need? Access to Tier 9 weapons archive, and the list of those who authorized Operation Rising Smoke. Rayner hesitated. That op is sealed. Kara's voice sharpened. So was I. They locked eyes. Then he nodded. 5 hours. But if you dig where you shouldn't, don't expect backup. I never did, she said softly. At 0200, the armory's sublevel door hissed open. Inside, surrounded by rusted crates and fingerprint locks, sat a single case with her name still etched on the latch. K. Reddick / Project Marionette / Do Not Deploy. She ran her fingers across the label. It hadn't been touched since it was sealed. Until now. She opened it. Inside was a rifle unlike any in circulation. Modified, balanced, imprinted with her hand geometry. A weapon designed for one user and one purpose. Next to it, a folded note. A voice sprint-coded mission briefing. She didn't need to read it to know. Red Winter had returned. But this time, it had no borders, no command, and no leash. Only her. The rifle in her hands didn't feel like a memory. It felt like a scar, cold, earned, permanent. Kara moved through the training depot like a whisper in concrete. Past the barracks. Past the mess. Past the motion sensors that should have triggered but didn't. Down into the basement level. Past the sign marked archived and no entry. The room was colder than it should have been. Fluorescent lights buzzed low, reflecting off rows of locked cabinets and sealed crates. She moved to a console on the far wall. It took only a second to bypass the retina scan. A voice print check followed. Authorization, Reddick Kara, Tier 9, Echo Delta. Query, Operation Rising Smoke. Phase 2, the terminal word. Then hesitated. Then displayed one phrase. File access granted, 1 of 1 viewing. A single video feed began to play. Grainy. Old. In it, a younger Kara stood in the ruins of a scorched village, rifle in hand, a drone camera hovering behind her. She was speaking to someone off-screen. The intel was wrong, she said. There were civilians. Kids. This was never a clean op. Then gunfire erupted. The camera fell. The feed ended. Kara stared at the screen for a long moment. They had erased this from her file, but not from the server. In another part of the base, Colonel Rayner sat alone in his office, staring at a list of recovered names. The file header read, Operation Marionette, Surviving Assets. Most were crossed out. One name remained unmarked. K. Reddick. There was a knock. The door opened before he answered. General Harrow stepped in, flanked by 2 MPs. His face was carved from stone. We have a problem, Harrow said. She accessed a Tier 9 server, using clearance that was deactivated over a decade ago. Rayner kept his voice steady, because she was never actually removed. She was shelved. Forgotten. Harrow's eyes narrowed. You knew she was here? I didn't stop her. That might have been your last command decision. He turned to the MPs. Detain Reddick. Quietly. I want her out of here before she pulls more ghosts out of our closets. But Kara was already ahead of them. As the MPs reached the barracks, she was gone. No sign, no motion, just a locker left open. Inside it, a single bullet rested on a folded page. A note. You buried the war, but it's waking up, and I remember where you left it. Outside the base, dawn was breaking over the ridge. A military truck rolled across the dirt road, dust kicking behind it. In the passenger seat, Kara sat in silence, the case with her rifle beside her. She wasn't running. She was retracing. Back to where it started. Back to where they thought they had covered their tracks. Back to the operation no one talked about, but everyone feared would resurface. Project Marionette. But this time, she wasn't just the weapon. She was the witness. And she was done being silent. The military truck rolled across the old service road, suspension creaking beneath the weight of memory. Kara didn't speak. She didn't need to. The man driving, Sergeant Hale, hadn't asked any questions since they left base. But he glanced at her now, the question hanging in the dust between them. You sure it's still there? He finally asked. Kara nodded. They never clean up what they think is buried. The GPS on the dashboard blinked red. No signal. They were too far off-grid now. The terrain had changed since the last time she'd been here. More trees, fewer fences, but she remembered the path like a scar. They stopped at what looked like an abandoned communications relay station. Vines covered the walls. Rusted gates groaned in the wind. But Kara walked straight to the base of the structure, knelt beside a cracked concrete panel, and pulled out a multi-tool. 3 turns, a hiss of release pressure. Then a steel hatch popped open. Below, darkness. She looked up at Hale. I go alone. He hesitated, then handed her a flashlight. If you're not out in 30, I won't be long. Back at Camp Sentry, panic was no longer silent. General Harrow paced in the SCDF room, flanked by Colonel Rayner and 3 cyber ops officers. Her biometric trail's gone dark, one said. She wiped the tracker. Rayner didn't look surprised. She knows the system better than any of us. Harrow turned to the wall-mounted screen. A satellite image flickered, grainy resolution, static lines. Run heat signature scans on Sector 17. Look for subterranean shifts. The AI system hesitated, then highlighted a region. The same comm station Kara had visited. Send a unit. Tier 4. Scramble comms under blackout protocol. She's going for the archive. Below the surface, Kara descended into a forgotten corridor. The walls still bore faded insignia, a marionette's hand above a globe. The symbol of the program that trained operatives to mimic, infiltrate, and disappear. The hallway opened into a command center. Dust-covered monitors, smashed consoles, and a single steel locker with her initials still etched faintly on the door. She opened it. Inside was the file. Hard copy. Untouched. Stamped. Project. Marionette // observer. K. Reddick // termination. Null. She flipped through the pages. Photos. Transcripts. Logs of actions she didn't remember taking. Assignments she'd supposedly completed during blackout episodes. Then she saw it. A hidden page tucked behind a manual. Her psychological profile. Subject displays full recall under duress. Asset remains emotionally tethered to non-combat memories. Weakness. Remembers what she wasn't supposed to. She closed the file. So that was the real reason. They hadn't retired her. They hadn't erased her. They were waiting for her to forget. A thud echoed from the entrance shaft. Kara backed into the shadows, rifle raised. Voices. Boots. Too late. The strike team was here. But so was the truth. And now she had a choice. Burn it all, or let them bury it again. She slid a USB from the file into her pocket, then quietly placed a charge near the archive wall. Not to destroy it, but to let them know she had taken something, and she wasn't done yet. The blast wasn't loud. It wasn't meant to be. Kara knew better than to make noise when silence could be louder. The small detonation she planted near the archive didn't collapse the tunnel. It triggered a power loop in the dormant security grid. Upstairs, the strike team froze as red lights flickered on, one by one, in the corridor above. She just reactivated the facility, one soldier muttered. The team leader clicked his radio. Command, we've got movement. She's still in the rabbit hole. But Kara wasn't. She had already slipped out through the secondary shaft, an old maintenance tunnel she helped map 15 years ago, back when the marionette program still had a face and a name. Back when she believed in it. Now she was in the woods again, dirt under her nails, blood pumping with purpose, and a drive full of ghosts in her pocket. At Camp Sentry, chaos brewed beneath the surface. Colonel Rayner leaned over General Harrow's desk, slapping a printout in front of him. This was inside the system she accessed. Harrow glanced at the words. Phase 3 activation pending. His face went pale. I thought Phase 3 was just theoretical. Rayner shook his head. You buried it. But she remembered. Outside, encrypted terminals were going dark, systematically shut down by someone inside the network. Not hacked, accessed, from a clearance level above even Harrow's. She's rewriting the keys, an analyst whispered. She's not running. She's countermeasuring. Kara reached the edge of an overlook, an old satellite dish array, long out of service, perched above a canyon. She opened the SatLink relay, slipped the USB in, and uploaded everything she had. The files, the logs, the names, not to the internet, to someone else. Her old handler. Eyes on, said a voice over the reactivated comms. Familiar. Calm. Didn't think you'd ever wake up. I didn't sleep, Kara replied. I was put down. There was a pause. Did you see what they planned? I saw what they did. That's enough. You're going back in, aren't you? She didn't answer, because they both knew she never left. Hours later, at a press room in D.C., an encrypted Dropbox pinged. Inside, one document. Project Marionette, Observer Dossier Reddick. Attached was a single message. They trained her to vanish. But they forgot. Shadows remember everything. Back at Camp Sentry, General Harrow watched the alerts light up across his screen like fireflies in a storm. She's out of range, someone said. No trail left. Rayner exhaled, eyes hollow. She's not hiding. No, Harrow agreed. She's hunting. They both stared at the map. One red dot blinked, then another, then 12 more. Each one, a name they had buried under the marionette file. Each one, waking up. The first to call was a voice Kara hadn't heard in 13 years. Echo. She paused. No one had called her that in over a decade. Not since the program dissolved. Not since she buried her old identity somewhere between 2 fake passports and a fractured clearance file. Still breathing, she replied. Then I guess the rumors are true. The voice belonged to Reddick, former intelligence architect, one of the only insiders who walked away before the program turned from surveillance to suppression. He continued, I saw the drop. Marionette's file wasn't just opened. It was detonated. Kara stood silent on the rooftop of a gutted outpost, staring at a landscape that hadn't changed. Dirt roads, cold stars, forgotten cameras. They erased us, she said, but they didn't think we'd come back as ghosts. Across the Atlantic, 3 more operatives pinged active. Tier-level clearances, once locked behind retinal gates and biometric walls, now flashed online from rogue satellites and dead comms towers, each with a single line in their logs. Echo resurfaced, awaiting tasking. At Camp Sentry, General Harrow's skin turned pale under the fluorescent lights. They're rebuilding the web, he muttered. His aide, young and panicked, asked, should we issue a blackout? Harrow shook his head. You can't black out a memory. Kara descended from the outpost into a former safe house. Inside, she found a sealed crate beneath the floorboards. Her initials were still burned into the side. Inside, a cold steel sidearm, a dossier marked Phase 0 contingency only, and a hand-drawn map with 13 red X's. Each X matched a known operative from the original Marionette cell. Each one had been terminated, or so they were told. But Kara had seen the files. Most weren't killed. They were reassigned, silenced, rewritten, and so like her, were left on standby. She took a breath, then burned the map, because she didn't need reminders. She knew where to go. In an underground metro tunnel, a man in a weathered trench coat read the news on a dusty terminal. Untraceable leaks, whistleblowers, shadow programs. He smiled. She's pulling threads. Beside him, a black duffel shifted. Inside was a disassembled sniper rifle and an envelope marked Echo, Phase 7. He zipped it shut and walked into the tunnel, disappearing into the dark. Back in D.C., a congressional aide stepped into a quiet committee room, holding a red folder. Sir, something you need to see. The chairman opened it. Inside were 13 names. One was crossed out. The rest had just gone dark. No bank logs, no communications, no heat signatures. Sir, she's waking them up. The chairman closed the folder. Not waking. He turned toward the window. She's arming them. The last target wasn't a man. It was a file, buried beneath 6 layers of black vault encryption, disguised as a logistics report, routed through ghost servers in 5 nations. Yet still, Kara found it. She didn't need brute force. She had something better. Memory. Deep inside an abandoned comms bunker once owned by a defunct NATO project, she sat in silence. Her fingers moved fast over the keys, but her eyes were on the photograph taped to the terminal. 6 soldiers, 1 mission, 0 survivors. Except one. Kara. Each name on that photo had been struck from official history. Each one labeled unstable, expendable, erased. But tonight, the world would remember. At 2:13 Zulu time, military systems across multiple time zones blinked. Not alarms. Replays. Encrypted video files burst to life on classified terminals. Uncut footage of field ops long denied. Voices of command figures who'd sworn under oath that no such unit existed. And at the center of each feed, Kara's voice. Calm. Commanding. Trapped inside a past that refused to stay buried. Meanwhile, in the command suite of Camp Sentry, General Harrow slammed his fist on the table. She flipped the dead switch. A colonel stared at the feeds. Sir, it's not just here, Germany, Qatar, Virginia. It's synchronized. Harrow gritted his teeth. She gave the public what the Senate never saw. Someone whispered, Sir, it's trending. Far from a noise, Kara stood alone at the ridge above a quiet valley where her first mission began. The sunrise cracked over the hills, warm and red. She watched it for a while. Behind her, soft footsteps. Reddick, you didn't vanish this time, he said. She didn't turn around. I wasn't trying to. You started something tonight. No, she replied. They did. I just finished it. He handed her a new envelope. It was blank on the outside, but inside, she knew, was everything she didn't want and everything she'd trained to survive. You're not running again? She looked back at the horizon. I'm done running. But if they build another machine? She let the thought hang. Reddick nodded. Then you'll be ready? She finally turned, a faint smile breaking across her face. I've always been ready. They just hoped I'd stay forgotten. That evening, major news outlets across the globe aired segments based on anonymous footage and leaks. They called her Echo. They called her a ghost. They called her a traitor, a hero, a myth. But those who knew better knew she never asked to be called anything. Round pushpin final message recovered from Echo's last transmission. You build a weapon out of people, and now those people remember. Military Medal, thank you for watching. If this story resonated with you, let us know in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for more untold, truth-inspired stories they try to bury.